Welcome back to the channel where we explore the hidden treasures lurking in the pockets, drawers, coin jars, and rolls of everyday people just like you. And today we are diving into the fascinating and highly surprising story of the 1994 Lincoln 1-cent coin. A coin so common and unassuming that millions of people have likely handled one without realizing they were holding a small fortune in their hand. Because while most 1994 pennies are worth only face value, certain rare examples have been discovered with a wide array of mint errors and striking mistakes that push their value all the way up to $218 or even higher depending on the condition, uniqueness of the error, and market demand among collectors who specialize in these incredible one-of-a-kind pieces. And it's exactly these kinds of coins that make hunting for modern Lincoln cents so rewarding, because they prove that value isn't just reserved for the old or silver coins. It can come from the copper-plated zinc penny right under your nose, especially if that penny happens to be from 1994 and carries one of the many known or yet-to-be-discovered errors that elevate it from spare change to numismatic treasure. So what makes a 1994 penny worth $218 or more? What kinds of mistakes did the US Mint make during that production year that have collectors going wild? And how can you spot one in your own collection? All of that and more is exactly what we'll break down as we take you on a journey into the world of coin errors, minting anomalies, and rare varieties that define the potential of this incredible year for Lincoln cents. Starting with the fact that 1994 saw billions of Lincoln cents minted across multiple U.S. mint facilities, including Philadelphia with no mint mark and Denver with a D mint mark. And with such massive production volumes, it's no surprise that the high-speed, high-pressure minting process occasionally gave way to mechanical faults, die deterioration, alignment issues, or operator errors, all of which contributed to a rich landscape of error types that we still continue to discover and document to this day, with one of the most sought-after and easily recognizable being the double die variety, where the die used to strike the coin receives a misaligned or repeated impression from the master hub, resulting in design elements such as the date, the motto "I in God we trust," the word liberty, or even the portrait of Lincoln himself appearing doubled, and while not as famous as the 1955 double die or the 1969 S, the 1994 penny does contain examples of moderate to strong doubling that can be visible even to the naked eye or with a 10x loop, and coins exhibiting this doubling in uncirculated condition can quickly reach or exceed $218 when authenticated and certified by major grading services like PCGS or NGC. And it's not just the obverse that features doubled dies. There are also reports of reverse doubling, particularly in the words 1 cent, United States of America, or the Lincoln Memorial itself, with doubled pillars or distorted lines inside the memorial becoming visible under magnification. And these reverse doubled die errors are especially desirable when paired with a high-grade surface, full red color, and strong strike, all of which increase eye appeal and collector interest. And then there's the off-center strike error, which occurs when the blank planchette fails to align properly within the collar during striking, resulting in a coin with a partial design and a crescent-shaped blank space along one edge. And the degree of off-centering plays a big role in value. Small off-center strikes might only command a modest premium, but dramatic 40% to 60% off-center strikes that still show the full date and mint mark are highly desirable and can push the coin's value well beyond the $200 mark, especially in mint state condition. And some collectors specialize entirely in off-center coins from every year, making unique 1994 examples an attractive purchase for building out those collections. And another visually dramatic and highly valuable error is the die break or cut error, which occurs when a piece of the die breaks off during striking and leaves a large raised blob of metal on the coin where the die no longer had a working surface. And these cuts most commonly appear along the rim but can intrude into the fields of the coin or even onto the central design. And large well-formed cuts on 1994 pennies are rare but not unheard of, and, when found, can dramatically boost the coin's value, especially if the cut adds an interesting shape or touches a design element like Lincoln's face or the columns of the memorial. and these are especially popular among collectors of dramatic and eye-catching mint eras. And then we have the die crack variety, where aging dies develop fine fissures under the repeated stress of striking thousands or millions of coins, and these cracks allow molten metal to fill the gaps and appear as raised lines across the coin's surface. And while minor die cracks are quite common and may not increase a coin's value significantly, larger cracks that stretch across Lincoln's profile, the field, or the memorial are much rarer and more desirable, and collectors often look for what are known as lightning strike die cracks that visually resemble bolts of lightning stretching across the coin. And 1994 cents with dramatic die cracks or multiple intersecting cracks are becoming more popular and can easily approach or surpass $218 in top condition or with strong visual appeal. And related to die cracks are the ever-popular BIE errors, where a small vertical die break appears between the letters B and E in Liberty, creating what looks like the letter I between them. And although these types of errors were more common in earlier Lincoln cents, some 1994 examples have been found with BIE breaks or similar minor die chips in that region, making them collectible especially for enthusiasts who aim to collect a full set of BIE varieties across multiple years. And then we enter the world of strike-through errors, where foreign materials such as grease, cloth fibers, thread, or even fragments of other coins end up between the die and the planchette during striking, resulting in distorted, missing, or ghost-like impressions that look dramatically different from a normal strike. And strike-through grease is perhaps the most common, causing design elements to appear weak, faded, or missing altogether, such as a partially missing date, weak motto, or vanished details in Lincoln's portrait or the memorial design. And dramatic strike-throughs involving thread, wire, or debris can result in bizarre and one-of-a-kind coins that collectors prize not just for rarity but also for visual uniqueness. And some 1994 examples with dramatic strike-through errors have fetched well over $218 when authenticated and sold through auction platforms or private collectors. And the topic of repunched mint marks cannot be ignored either, especially when looking at the 1994 D penny, because although the mid-90s were transitioning into newer minting techniques that reduced the need for hand-punched mint marks, there were still some residual examples of repunched mint marks or RPMs that made it into circulation, and coins showing a double D with separation visible to the north, south, east, or west are particularly valuable to variety collectors and are sometimes catalogued in reference guides for attribution. And when paired with mint state surfaces and other errors, these RPMs on 1994 D cents can push a coin well over the $200 threshold, and coins struck on wrong planches are another class of high-value errors to consider, because while rare, some 1994 cents have been found struck on planches intended for foreign coinage or on blanks of the wrong metal composition or weight, and a 1994 penny that weighs significantly more or less than the standard 2.5 grams should be weighed carefully and evaluated, because if struck on a copper planchette leftover from earlier years or on a foreign blank, its value could skyrocket far beyond $218 depending on the metal, dimensions, and rarity, and professional grading services can help determine the exact composition and authenticity of such coins using X-ray fluorescence analysis or other non-invasive tests. And collectors will also look for misaligned die strikes, where the obverse and reverse dies are out of vertical alignment, causing the reverse to appear off-center even when the obverse looks normal. And these are relatively rare and especially dramatic when the misalignment causes part of the design to be cut off or wrapped around the rim. And then we must mention die clashes, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchette in place, causing part of the design from one side to transfer to the other die and appear faintly on coins afterward. Next, 2012 D1 cent USA coin. Today we are talking about one of those modern-era sleepers that's been increasingly catching the attention of coin collectors and error hunters alike, the 2012 D Lincoln 1 cent coin, Yes, that small copper-plated zinc penny struck at the Denver Mint in 2012 that you may have seen 1,000 times but never thought twice about could actually be worth as much as $45 if it contains certain rare and fascinating mint errors or die varieties that make it a valuable and sought-after collectible. And even though it's a modern coin and still circulates widely today, not all 2012 D pennies are created equal. And as we dive deep into the rich world of minting mistakes, striking anomalies, and die variations that plague and define this year's mintage, you'll see exactly how a humble 1-cent piece can turn into a coin collector's prize and why this specific year and mint mark combination opens the door to a wide range of possibilities that increase its value dramatically. And we start with the basic fact that the 2012 D penny features the Union Shield reverse design, which had been in use since 2010 and symbolizes the preservation of the United States as a single union, a design that's simple yet iconic, making it easier to detect anomalies and deviations in design elements, strike quality, or structural consistency. And like other copper-plated zinc coins minted after 1982, the 2012 D penny weighs about 2.5 grams, but it is when this standard is violated or disrupted due to errors in planchette composition, die alignment, or strike integrity that collectors start to pay attention, because those deviations often create coins worth far more than 1 cent. And one of the most sought-after and potentially high-value error types in the 2012 D penny is the doubled die variety, which is caused when the die that strikes the coin receives multiple impressions from the hub that are misaligned by a small but visible amount, resulting in doubling of elements in the design. And collectors who are fortunate enough to find a 2012 D penny with strong doubling on the obverse features such as the date, the D mint mark, the motto "I in God we trust," or the word liberty can sell them for significantly more than face value. And even moderate examples of doubling, particularly in uncirculated condition, can command values of $20 to $45 or more depending on eye appeal and demand. And although doubled dies in modern coins are not as common as they were in earlier decades, several examples of 2012 D cents with recognized doubling have been found and authenticated, and these coins continue to be actively hunted by both beginner and veteran collectors who specialize in varieties and errors. And then we have the classic off-center strike, a visually dramatic and extremely collectible error that happens when the coin blank, or planchette, is not properly centered between the dies during striking, causing the design to appear partially or even largely missing on one side. And off-center errors that range between 10% and 60% are especially popular with collectors, and a 2012 D penny with an off-center strike of around 50% that still shows the full date and mint mark can easily be worth $45 or more. And the value climbs further if the coin is in mint state condition with no wear or post-mint damage. And with such errors it's all about the visibility, uniqueness, and eye appeal, and the more lopsided or oddly shaped the coin is while still displaying critical information like the date and mint mark, the higher its desirability and price. And speaking of striking issues, we must also explore the realm of die cracks and die breaks which occur as the dies used to strike coins degrade and develop fractures from prolonged use under extreme pressure. And in the 2012 D series, collectors have reported a wide range of die cracks on both the obverse and reverse, with cracks often extending from Lincoln's head across the fields of the coin or through the shield's vertical stripes on the reverse. And sometimes these cracks evolve into full-fledged cud breaks when a chunk of the die breaks off completely, causing a large raised blob of metal to form on the coin, usually near the rim. And such cuds can be especially valuable when they're well-formed and dramatically affect the appearance of the coin. And examples from 2012 D with prominent cuds have sold for $30 to $50 and even higher depending on the size, placement, and overall aesthetic impact of the break. And some collectors focus exclusively on collecting cud errors from every year and mint, and a good-looking 2012 D cud fits perfectly into such collections, adding to the demand and pushing up the price. And then we have die chips which are smaller, isolated versions of die breaks that appear as raised bumps or blobs on specific parts of the design, such as Lincoln's mouth, eyes, bow tie, or the shield's scroll and stripes, and although these are relatively common in modern coins, certain die chip placements, like a chip on Lincoln's eye that gives the illusion of a teardrop, or a chip on the reverse that alters the appearance of the scroll, can become niche collectibles known as pop culture errors and sell for $20 or more depending on creativity and uniqueness. And when multiple chips appear on the same coin or are combined with other errors like die cracks, off-center strikes, or strike-throughs, the compound effect on value can be substantial. And then there's the struck-through error, which occurs when a foreign object or substance becomes lodged between the die and the planchette during striking, leaving behind impressions, voids, or textures that deviate from the intended design. And in 2012, pennies, known strike-through materials include grease, cloth fibers, string, or even fragments of other coins, and grease-filled dies can result in missing or extremely weak design elements like an invisible mint mark, a faded date, or partially missing words in the motto or shield scroll. And more dramatic strike-through errors involving actual physical objects can leave indented or raised shapes on the coin that are totally unique and can easily elevate the value above $45 if they are in mint condition and visually striking. And the more rare and dramatic the strike-through, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially if it's authenticated by a grading service and given a special designation label. And that brings us to another very important class of errors: misaligned die strikes and tilted die errors, where either the obverse or reverse die is out of alignment, resulting in design elements appearing shifted, tilted, or partially off-rim. And these types of errors can create interesting anomalies, such as a shifted shield on the reverse or a warped profile of Lincoln on the obverse. And while mild examples may be worth a few dollars, strong misalignments that show dramatic shift while still keeping the date visible can reach values in the $25 to $45 range, especially if preserved well with little to no circulation wear. And then we have another high-interest category: coins struck on the wrong planchette, also called off-metal errors, which are among the rarest and most valuable of mint mistakes because they result when a coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for a different denomination or even for foreign coinage. And although these errors are exceedingly rare in modern coinage due to stricter controls, a 2012 penny that weighs significantly more or less than the standard 2.5 grams may have been struck on an incorrect planchette. And these coins are incredibly valuable, often selling for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the metal, size, and visibility of the error. And while most 2012 cents won't fall into this category, it's always worth weighing your coins with a precision scale and looking for anything suspicious or unusual in weight, color, or sound. And don't forget about reverse design anomalies like missing shield lines, ghost bars, and other types of missing design elements, which are usually caused by overused, overpolished, or poorly prepared dies. And these types of errors create coins that appear to be partially missing key features, and although they may not be worth as much as major striking errors, examples in mint state condition can still reach or exceed $45 if the missing design elements are significant and eye-catching. And when combined with other types of errors, the value multiplies quickly. And finally, we must talk about the power of condition, grading, and professional certification, because even a coin with a modest error can shoot up in value if it is preserved in mint state condition and graded by a top-tier service like PCGS, NGC, or ANAX. And a 2012 penny last 1992 1-cent USA coin, where we unlock the mysteries, secrets, and hidden fortunes that may be lying unnoticed in your pocket change, your piggy bank, or an old drawer full of coins. And today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and underestimated coins in recent American numismatic history, the 1992 Lincoln 1-cent coin, a small copper-plated zinc piece that, while seemingly ordinary and still very common in circulation, can under the right circumstances and with the right kind of mint error, be worth up to $345 or even more. And while the average person may walk right past a 1992 penny without a second glance, seasoned collectors and era enthusiasts know that this year holds an astonishing amount of potential when it comes to rare and valuable mistakes, minting anomalies, transitional errors, and highly sought-after varieties that can turn a humble 1-cent piece into a miniature treasure. So if you've ever glanced at a 1992 penny in your change and tossed it aside, you might want to start taking a much closer look, because we're about to uncover how something so small and seemingly insignificant can be worth hundreds of dollars, all due to the complicated and error-prone process of coin production. And it all starts with understanding the unique circumstances surrounding the minting of pennies in the early 1990s, when the US Mint was shifting its production methods, die designs, and technology, making this period ripe for errors and transitional mix-ups. One of the most famous and widely known of these errors in the 1992 penny is the close AM variety, an incredibly rare mistake that occurred when reverse dies intended for proof coins were accidentally used to strike circulation coins at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. And the key identifying factor here is the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse side of the coin, because typically in 1992, circulation strike pennies should have a wide AM design, where the letters A and M are clearly spaced apart with a visible gap between them at the base, but in the close AM era variety, these letters are almost touching or just barely separated, a design detail intended only for proof strikes, and yet by accident a small number of these close AM reverse dies were used to mint regular business strike coins, which makes them extraordinarily rare and desirable to collectors. And while most 1992 close AM examples have been reported from the Philadelphia Mint, a few have surfaced from Denver as well, and those in high grades with clear details and minimal wear can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction, with circulated examples easily commanding $345 or more. And what makes this error even more compelling is how deceptively minor it seems. The only difference lies in the spacing between two letters, but that's all it takes to elevate a coin from a common penny to a numismatic prize, and because of its subtlety, this variety often goes unnoticed, making it a perfect example of why every collector should always examine their coins carefully and know what to look for. And the close AM isn't the only error that makes the 1992 penny valuable, because there are numerous other die varieties, minting errors, and anomalies that collectors actively seek out, such as doubled dies, which occur when a die receives more than one misaligned impression from the hub during production, creating visible doubling of the design elements on the coin. And although less dramatic than famous doubled dies like the 1955 or 1972 cents, the 1992 penny has been found with several minor to moderate doubled die obverses and reverses, particularly on the inscriptions like Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date itself. And while minor doubling may only raise the value modestly, strong, well-centered doubled dies in uncirculated condition can easily push the value to $100 or more and even reach that $345 level when paired with exceptional eye appeal or slabbed certification by a grading service like PCGS or NGC. And then we have off-center strikes, a classic error in the world of numismatics and one of the most dramatic and easily recognizable types of mint mistake, caused when the planchette is not properly centered in the press and receives only a partial imprint of the die, resulting in a coin with part of its design missing, warped, or off the rim. And the further off-center the strike, the more desirable the coin becomes, especially if it retains visible key elements like the date and mint mark. And a 1992 penny with a 40 to 60% off-center strike and legible date can command serious collector interest, often selling in the range of $150 to $345 or more depending on condition, and even more so if it features additional errors like die cracks, die chips, or lamination flaws, which bring us to another category of value-adding mistakes, planchette and die-related defects, where imperfections in the metal blank or the dies themselves lead to raised lines, blobs, or missing elements in the design, and 1992 pennies have been reported with retained die cracks that snake across Lincoln's face or jacket, die breaks near the rim that form large raised cuds, or even chips that distort the details of the portrait or the memorial building on earlier reverses, and each of these can attract niche collectors who seek out such imperfections, especially when they are bold, unique, and in high grade, and lamination errors, which occur when the surface of the coin begins to peel or separate due to metal impurities or stress during the rolling and cutting process, are another valuable subset, as these flaws can look like jagged tears or peeled back layers on the coin's surface, and while smaller laminations may only be worth a few dollars, large, dramatic ones on a 1992 penny, especially on the obverse, can drastically boost collector appeal and raise the coin's value to the $200 to $345 range, particularly if the flaw creates a striking visual effect. And don't forget about strike-through errors, where foreign objects like grease, string, cloth fibers, or even other fragments of metal get between the die and planchette during the strike, leaving ghostly impressions or gaps in the design. And grease-filled dies are notorious for weakening or eliminating details, such as causing parts of the date to disappear, or making Liberty look incomplete or faint. And if you find a 1992 penny with a strike-through that creates a bold, unusual, or unrepeatable feature, especially in mint condition, you may be looking at a piece that easily commands the $345 range. And with error collecting being as strong as ever, there's also demand for other types of striking errors like brockages, where a previously struck coin sticks to the die and leaves a mirror image of its design on the next coin struck, and these are incredibly dramatic and rare, especially in modern pennies, and a 1992 penny with a partial or full brockage is a dream find that could easily sell for hundreds of dollars, and collectors also value transitional errors, where elements from one year are mistakenly used in another. And in 1992, because of die mixing and transitional changes in design styles, especially regarding the spacing of AM, collectors are constantly on the lookout for transitional anomalies, and coins that show these kinds of transitional mixes are incredibly valuable when authenticated. And another rare category to consider is wrong planchette errors, when a penny is accidentally struck on a blank meant for a different denomination, or even for a coin from a foreign country, which in 1992 could theoretically involve blanks meant for dimes, nickels, or Canadian coinage. And while incredibly rare, if a 1992 penny weighs significantly less or more than the standard 2.5 grams, or is noticeably smaller or larger in diameter, it may be an off-metal strike and should be weighed and examined carefully, as such errors can reach values well into the hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on their uniqueness and visibility of the date and design. And finally, the overall condition of the coin plays a massive role in its value, because even the most amazing error can be devalued by heavy wear, corrosion, or damage, whereas a clean, uncirculated example with full red luster and no signs of post-mint handling can demand a premium. And if you pair that pristine condition with a rare variety like the close AM or a dramatic cut or strike through, then you're not just talking about $345, you might be looking at a coin that fetches much more in an auction or private sale, especially if it's slabbed and certified by a professional grading service. So whether you're searching through old jars, checking your pocket change, or sifting through bulk copper penny rolls, it's time to start paying close attention to the 1992 Lincoln cent.